So this is Baruch here at the Tikvan Elevator Kolo reminding you that learning of the Zohar will bring the Mashiach. Why? Because it shows us the channels of relationships to Hashem. It shows you how to pray. It shows you how to learn what you're learning for. It builds Panemius. So let's come over here with where we've been talking here. We said it's very interesting. Where does the voice come from? Where does song come from? Where does a singer get his notes? So he says, well, there are 6 lobes of the liver. Excuse me, I said the wrong thing. The 6 lobes of the lungs. So he says, how do you get 6? Well, there are 5 basic lobes and another one, lobe, and there are another one called the varda, which is the 6th one. Now this voice comes out of the air there and is funneled through the 6 rings of the trachea. And from there, it produces sound. So this is a concept of 6. 6 is the concept of voice. Voice is the aspect of Zair Anpin. Words, which are more defined than voice and music, are the aspect of malchus. So this is a general rule in Kabbalah, and let's learn from there. Now let's go down here and see if we can't pick up what's playing here in this Zohar. So he said, Omar Od, it says furthermore, Ki yipok le liba desamen bina, that this real sound really comes originally from Bina. Biotzia esakol metochios halev shehem isgalus abina, shesham isgalus abina. That's an interesting phrase because the heart, Bina, is really the left brain. So how is Bina related? That was the question I had. How is Bina related to the heart? The heart's in the middle of the chest. But the heart is a place of inspiration. And he said, V'yotze esakol, he brings the call out, metochios halev, from the inside of the heart. In other words, the inspiration is the heart. You get your heart in it. He said, because where in the heart his galos habina is where revealed Bina is manifest. Doesn't mean this is the place of Bina. It means the place of Bina is a connection to the heart. That's another way of saying a simple idea that the root of Zair Anpin is really coming from Bina. Like we explained like this, Marimas Nisan, that the rabbis who wrote the Mishnah said, Mishnah. This is a Gemara. This is a Mishnah in the Second Brachos. Halev Mavin, the heart understands. Mavin is Lashon Bina. And the Forest there goes more into that. And he said, Yipok Ben Bina. So we'll bring out a ben. You see, the word ben has also the words Bina in it. The Bina has the word ben in it. The Yipok Ben, bring out his son. The son comes from Bina. That's where it comes from. The Aina Miben Yak de Ihu Vav Miben Shal Bina Shuhu Yud. Now let's translate this a little bit because it seems a little tricky to me. He said the Hainu Miben Yud K. So this child comes out between these 2 letters. In other words, this is what I said, I think, at the end of the last year. Is you have this concept of Yaakov, Yud K Vav. Yud K Vav is the basic building block of the DNA of Zair Anpin. So he says, use that phrase, the Hainu. Biben Yak De'ihu, the children of Yud. Yud normally refers to Chochmah. It refers to Chochmah. The Hey refers to Bina. So the Vav comes out between the 2 of them. Miben Shal Habina Shehu Yud K. So it comes out to the son of Bina. He says, which is the child of Yud K, which is Chochmah Bina. that letter is the Vok, is the Vav, but the Vok Shabal Shabal Shuhu Sod Os Vav, which is the secret of the letter Vav. And it's important to understand that this letter Vav, which comes from the name Yud K Vav K, also, is really important to this. Because it's like a hatchling that has 6 wings. He says, what does this mean? So hatchling means a new birth. Zair Anpin hu afroach. He's like a hatchling, kalape ima, if you look at it in terms of his relationship to his mother. In other words, where was he gestated? Where did he come out? Sheyesh lo sheis kafayim. He has 6 wings. He said, the Hainu, Sheyesh Lo Volk, that is the six midos, is Zair Anpin, Chesed Gevurah Tiferes, Netzach Yisod. V'yisalek le b'shis azkan dekonim. And he said, V'ya'ala es Zair Anpin, it elevates Zair Anpin, im havok shalo, together with these six wings, b'sheish tevol shalakona, into the six rings of the lung, the six leaves, excuse me, not the lung, of the windpipe. The height of the shor should be bina, that is, it goes back because bina also is connected to the throat. The inun sheish ma'alos the kisa, which represents the six steps that lead up to the throne. Aim so sheish ma'alos the kisa. What does that mean? The hainu, the bina. Why? What are the six steps? Zair Anpin is also could be seen as six steps. Six steps leads what's at the top of the six steps. There's the throne, Shihakise, the Chochmah, which is Bina, is like the throne for Chochmah. What does it mean? She's a base kibble. It means that she's a receptacle of the light, or let's say of the DNA that Chochmah has within it to replant in her. And this is an exact metaphor in many ways to reproduction that we can understand. Ritzon Sha'al Yadei Rina, the Raisa, that by singing and dancing and rejoicing with the Torah, and then also uvakashos, and also our request for tachtunim and our supplication of begging for mercy. Olah HaKol is Zair Anpin. This, the voice, is lifted up to Zair Anpin. The Zair Anpin brings it up to Bina, which is Bina is a world beyond. Going on. So now, since the Matuk wants to give us a little wind-up in here to give us a preview, so he says, and then since Shehizkir Shabina who Kisa the Chokma, the Bina is the Kisa for Chokma, before Sheyesh Od Kisa, I want to explain that there's another Kisa. What's that Kisa? Zesha Amar Trin Kursya Inu, because we have this phrase like this. There are two thrones. B'shnei Kisol saying, Ki Bina, he Kisa the Chokma, because Bina is really the throne for Chokma. We understand that. In other words, this is the male aspect, because in Kabbalah, the male means the giver. So it's the male, the possessor, who's the giver. And at the time when there could be the Chokma is also at times female, because it has to receive from Zair Anpin. So they go both ways, but when we see it in this way, the male figure is Chokma. Well, Malchus, he Kisei the Zair Anpin. So it says that Bina is a Kisei for Chokma, and Malchus is a Kisei for Zair Anpin, which is making the Yehudim. Behind he says a Kisei kavod maron merishon. The Kisei cover, the throne of glory, from up on high, from the very beginning, the Hainu Habibina. She Kisei the covered Shuha Chokma, because she is the Chokma, the covered. He wants to say covered is a metaphor for Chochmah. She's the throne for Chochmah. She yesh lo lamed based the Sivas that Chochmah has 32 different paths within. Kamisbar kavod, which is also the gematria of the word kavod. Remember the pasuk is Kisei kavod maron merishon. So kavod is also what? The gematria of 32. 32 means the paths that are coming from Abba, which is Chochmah, into Ima. So these are the 32 Nesivas of Chochmah. Vihi Merom v'Gavoa Merishon, but this is higher up than the Rishon. Now, what's the Rishon? Shuhu HaMalchus. Because if you're counting from the bottom of the Baal, Shehi Kisei Rishon V'Mata the Mala, which is the Kisei, the first Kisei from the bottom to the top. Vinun Liba B'Fuma. Behem Ba'adam Keneged the Lev Shu Habina. So then we have like this, let's look at ourselves. It corresponds to our hearts and to our mouths. So the heart really is the seat of Bina, where Bina is manifest. Bina motivates the breath to be able to pour itself into the 6 rings of the voice. The voice then, therefore, is the birth, as you might say, in a different sense, in a purely spiritual sense, it's Zair Anpin, because that's what Zair Anpin is voice. And Zair Anpin, of course, is attached to a further elucidation, which is called Malchus, who is Dibur. Adam Keneged Alev Shuhu Habina, V'Hapeh Shuhu HaMalchus, and then you have the mouth which represents Malchus, Kamasha Kosef, V'Pesach Eliyahu. So you see the Malchus path, the word Malchus and Peh go together. So he said, so it's called the Torah, the oral Torah. Beforish, the concept lave. Lave is the lave nesivus hachma that he mentioned before. It's the number 32. But it's also, in our drush here, it's also the heart. So he said, Gibina, he kised the shem yad. Let me say, I think I misread it. Umefarish lave shuhabina. Allah ne'emar, in regards to this, it says like this, V'yomer ki yad al kes yak. Now, I used to pronounce this, the yeshivas normally pronounce this kah, but I've heard it pronounced yak, which I think really looks a little bit better if you think about it. He said, V'yomer ki yad al kes kah, his hand on the throne of Yud Kei. Now let's see, what does it mean? He says, Ki bina, he kisi the shem Yud Kei. So Bina is the kisei for the kinship of Chochmah. There is a Yud and there's a K. It's a little complicated to say how it is, but we do see this in the Sifra Tzniuta. The K can be Yud can be made into Yud Vav Daled, and Vav and Daled can be formed into a structural Hay. So within the Yud itself, the Hay is located, and it all winds up in Bina. So it's the Yud and the K that is found in Chochmah. So check that shir in the morning, because we go over this idea pretty regularly. So this is what brings out the power of battle. That's the fight that Hashem has with Amalek. Shehashem, Shuhu Zair Anpin, that is Yudke Vavke, who is Zair Anpin Lochem, he fights Amalek. Who is Amalek? Shuhu Keneged Kaved. Amalek really represents the liver. The liver is what brings everything down in your body. Sheyesh b'sheyesh ba'adam. So he says, where is the manifestation of Samakel? Samakel is the name of the master of our brother Esav. That's the malach of, let's say, of the other side. The Hanas Samakel is Hashochin b'kodid. Where he hangs out is in the liver. V'hu neged l'lev, so neg the lev shuhu b'chidas bina, so it corresponds to the heart. That is, in other words, it doesn't correspond. It's opposite the heart. The opposite of the heart, shuhu b'chidas bina. So you have the samakel in the liver. Puma. Now he says the word mouth. Shuhu keneged the malchus. This really refers to malchus. It's malchus peh, as he said before. She'alechu ne'emar, because it regards to this, and it says, Bakase the hainum. Case Yap. So he says, where is that? Nechama l'shem b'molek, he said, v'hina liba b'pula, kisa kavod meram rishon, son, yomer ki yad al case yak. So that's what it is. He says, the hand will be on the throne of Yud Kei. Now what does this mean? B'kase the hind of b'kase Hashem. He kise sod he achronu dechavai, because there is a throne there which is made out of Malchus itself. So Malchus itself is also a receptacle, as we understand it. We said before that we saw a whole shir. He said here a couple of days ago. He said that Malchus is the concept, the Shechina is Malchus, the concept of night, because it's empty of light. So he says the Malchus itself is empty, needs to be filled, but filled with Kedusha. That's it. This is the meaning of this idea. Zech shekasav tiku b'chol the shofar. So blow out at the proper month from the shofar, the kesa with this throne, shazen emer ala malchus. So this blowing, when the blow into malchus, bring everything into malchus. This is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Polo. Thank you for listening.